Well, hello there. I'm Lance, and welcome to Dozing Off. Dozing Off is a podcast where I'm gonna read you to sleep. I'll narrate short stories and classic literature in this deep and relaxing tone to allow you to put your overactive mind at ease and doze off. While this is the best time of year, it can also be the most stressful time of year. Not just for you or I, but also for Santa. So what I want to do tonight is tell you about the year when Santa almost gave up on Christmas. If you're listening tonight, I appreciate you so much for making Dozing Off a part of your bedtime routine. Without further ado, let's dive into tonight's story. When Santa almost gave up on Christmas. For the first time and longer than anyone could remember, longer even than the elves could remember, and they remembered everything, Santa Claus did not wake up humming. There was no soft baritone rendition of Deck the Halls drifting through the North Pole that morning. No whistling. No cheerful tapping of boots against the wooden floor. Instead, Santa lay very still beneath his heavy quilt, staring at the ceiling of his modest snow-topped bedroom, listening to the quiet. It was the kind of quiet that wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of quiet that felt disappointed. Santa exhaled slowly, watching his breath fog the air. The room was warm, of course. Mrs. Claus insisted on it. But Santa felt cold. Not the physical kind of cold, something deeper, something heavier. He rubbed his eyes and sat up with a sigh. I don't know if I've got it in me this year, he muttered to no one in particular. The words surprised him. He'd never said them out loud before. This whole ordeal had started just a few days earlier, on what should have been a perfectly ordinary December afternoon. Santa had taken a rare trip outside the North Pole. Nothing fancy. Just a short, magical visit to a city plaza where children were ice skating and lights were strung from every lamppost. He liked to walk among the people sometimes. It reminded him why he did what he did. That was when he ran into him. The man stood near a coffee stand, arms crossed, staring at his phone with the intensity of someone deeply committed to being annoyed. He wore a long coat, a knitted scarf, and an expression that looked like it had been practicing frowning for years. Santa had nearly passed by when the man scoffed. Christmas, the man muttered. Figures. Santa paused. Pardon me? Santa said gently, turning. The man looked up, startled, then squinted. You're kidding me. Santa smiled politely. I try not to, sir. The man sighed dramatically. Let me guess. You're one of those guys who loves this whole thing. The lights, the music, the forced cheer. Santa nodded. I do, actually. The man laughed, not a joyful laugh, but a tired one. Figures, You people always do. Santa tilted his head. You people? Christmas people, the man said, always acting like it's some magical cure-all, like it fixes everything. Santa felt something tighten in his chest. I don't think it fixes everything, Santa said softly, but it can help. The man shook his head. Help who? The kids who get everything they want. The families pretending they're happy. What about the rest of us? Santa opened his mouth, then closed it. The man continued, words spilling out now. You know what Christmas is for me? Deadlines, bills, awkward conversations, fake smiles, another reminder that things didn't turn out how I thought they would. Santa stood very still. I used to love it, the man added quietly, when I was a kid. There was a pause. Then the man sighed again, softer this time. Anyway, sorry. Didn't mean to unload on a stranger dressed like, well. Santa smiled gently. It's quite all right. The man nodded and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Santa remained there for a long time after. That night, Santa couldn't sleep. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the man's words over and over. What about the rest of us? Santa had always known Christmas wasn't perfect. He wasn't naive, but he believed deeply that it mattered, that it helped, that it reached people, even quietly. But now, doubt had crept in, slow and unwelcome. What if Christmas didn't help as much as he thought? What if it was just noise? The thought followed him into the workshop the next morning. The elves noticed immediately. Santa usually arrived with a booming, "Good morning," and a joke or two. But that day, he simply nodded and walked to his desk. Bernard, head elf and longtime operations manager, exchanged worried glances with Jingle and Peppermint. Everything all right, Santa? Bernard asked carefully. Santa hesitated. Do you ever wonder if what we do still matters? The room fell silent. Bernard blinked. Sir? Santa rubbed his beard. The toys, the traditions, the whole thing. Do you think people still need it? The elves stared at him as if he suggested canceling snow. Of course they do, Peppermint said. But some don't, Santa replied quietly. Bernard stepped forward. Santa, Christmas isn't always about everyone feeling happy all the time. It's about reminding them that happiness is still possible. Santa nodded, but the words didn't settle the way they used to. Three days later, Santa did something unprecedented. He opened a laptop. It had been a gift from Mrs. Claus years ago, mostly used for weather tracking and checking reindeer health reports. But now, Santa stared at a blank document titled Resume. He scratched his head. Well, he muttered, I suppose I should start somewhere. Santa Claus experience. Delivering gifts globally for several centuries. logistics management under extreme time constraints, animal leadership, reindeer team, mixed personalities, seasonal operations oversight, public relations mostly positive. He paused. Sounds ridiculous, he said to the empty room. Still, he continued. Santa was applying for jobs discreetly. He didn't tell the elves. He applied to customer service roles, shipping company roles, motivational speaking roles. But unfortunately, he just got rejection after rejection, and each rejection chipped away at him. The interviews were even worse. The worst one was with a large corporation that specialized in global supply chains. The interviewer smiled tightly. So, Santa, can I call you Santa? Santa nodded. It's what most people call me. And this Christmas thing, that's seasonal, correct? Yes. So, what do you do the rest of the year? Santa blinked. Prepare? The interviewer frowned. Right. And how do you handle stress? Santa chuckled softly. With patience and cookies. The interviewer did not laugh. We're looking for someone more data-driven. Santa nodded, stood, and thanked them politely. He sat in his sleigh afterward, staring at the dashboard. I hate interviews, he said aloud. That evening, Mrs. Claus poured Santa a mug of cocoa and sat beside him. You're quieter, she said gently. Santa sighed. Do you think Christmas still matters? Mrs. Claus didn't answer right away. Then she took his hand. It matters, she said, but not the way that you think. It doesn't fix everything. It just shows up. And honestly, sometimes that's enough. Santa looked down. I met someone, he said. He made me feel like I've been shouting into the wind. Mrs. Claus smiled softly. Even the wind carries sound. The next morning, a single letter arrived at the North Pole. No return address, just Santa's name written carefully. He opened it. Dear Santa, I don't know if you remember me. We spoke briefly by the coffee stand. I was in a bad place. Still am, if I'm honest. But after we talked, I went home and found an old photo. It was me at age 6, sitting on my dad's shoulders, smiling like the world made sense. I realized something. Christmas didn't lie to me. Life just got loud. I don't need Christmas to fix everything. I just need it to remind me who I used to be. Thank you for listening. A friend. Santa felt warmth spread through his chest, slow and steady. Santa folded the letter carefully and placed it in his pocket. He stood, adjusted his coat, and smiled. Santa stood in the quiet of the workshop long after the elves had gone to lunch. The letter rested in his large gloved hands, the paper warm now, as if it had been absorbed to the heat of his body, or perhaps something deeper. He read it again, not because he needed to, but because it felt grounding, like placing both feet on solid ground after standing too long on ice. I don't need Christmas to fix everything, Santa whispered the words softly, letting them echo in the rafters. For the first time in weeks, he didn't feel the weight of the world pressing against his chest. The doubt didn't vanish entirely. Santa knew better than to expect that, but it did loosen its grip. It softened. It stepped aside. Then, he did something he hadn't done in days. He laughed. It was quiet at first, a low rumble, surprised and gentle, as if it had forgotten how to come out. But it grew warmer with each breath, filling the workshop with the familiar sound the walls themselves seemed to recognize. "Bernard?" Santa called. Bernard appeared almost instantly, clipboard in hand. "Yes, Santa?" Santa smiled. "Let's get back to work." The elves cheered. When Christmas Eve finally came, the North Pole shimmered with anticipation. Snow fell softly, as if it knew better than to rush. The reindeer stamped their hooves, eager but calm. Mrs. Claus adjusted Santa's coat and brushed a bit of frost from his sleeve. "You ready?" she asked. Santa smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. "I am." As he climbed into the sleigh, Santa felt the familiar surge of magic around him. But this year, it felt different. Not louder, not brighter. Deeper. He took off into the night sky, the stars stretching endlessly ahead. And as he traveled from rooftop to rooftop, Santa moved more slowly than usual. Not inefficiently, never that, but intentionally. He paused, he looked, he listened. In one home, he saw a light still on in the kitchen. A single parent sat at the table, head in their hands. Santa left the gifts, then lingered a moment longer, placing something unseen in the air. A sense of being enough, just as they were. In another house, a teenager lay awake, staring at the ceiling, unsure of their place in the world. Santa left a gift. Yes, but also a quiet reassurance, like a hand resting gently on the shoulder of their thoughts. Not fixes, reminders. If you're listening to this, if you're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, if your mind feels busy, heavy, or tired, this part is for you. Because this season can be beautiful and still be hard. You're not wrong for feeling that way. Christmas and the holidays in general have a way of shining a bright light on everything at once. The joy, the love, the memories, but also the gaps, the grief, the expectations we didn't ask for, and the ones we placed on ourselves. It can feel like everyone else is doing better, happier, more together, more festive. But what you don't see is how many people are quietly holding themselves together in the same way that you are. Breathing in, breathing out, doing their best. You don't need this season to fix you. You don't need it to suddenly make your life make sense. You don't need to feel grateful every second, or joyful on command, or full of cheer just because the calendar says so. You're allowed to simply be here. Sometimes the greatest gift of this season isn't happiness, it's permission. Permission to slow down, permission to feel what you feel, permission to let things be imperfect. Christmas isn't asking anything more of you. And so, when the last light was turned off at the North Pole and the snow settled into its familiar stillness, Santa returned home not as a man who had nearly given up, but as one who remembered why he began. He hung his coat by the door, the letter still resting close to his heart, and sat quietly for a moment, listening to the soft hum of a world at rest. Christmas did not roar back into place. It returned gently, like a friend pulling up a chair beside him. And as Santa closed his eyes that night, a small, contented smile found its way beneath his beard, knowing that even when belief wavers, even when joy grows quiet, it is never truly lost. It's only waiting to be remembered. What a good little reset and to the point of Christmas in this time of year. If you're still here, I hope you enjoyed this story as well. And I hope you're asleep very soon, since I didn't do the job apparently. But I'm glad you got to hear this entire story. Sleep well, and hope you have a wonderful holiday season.